I want to paint a picture for you. You have just taken your dog on a brisk, like hour-long power walk.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. You've kept this fantastic pace. You're sweating a little bit, and your smartwatch is enthusiastically congratulating you on, you know, crushing your step goal for the day.
It feels like a major accomplishment.
It really does. So you walk through your front door, you unclip the leash, kick off your shoes, and you're feeling like a highly responsible, top-tier pet owner.
And then the reality sets in.
Exactly. Your dog immediately grabs a decorative throw pillow, starts viciously shaking it, or maybe sprints straight to the backyard to just frantically dig a crater in the middle of your lawn.
Yeah, the classic post-walk zoomies.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
You are completely exhausted, but the dog is acting like they haven't done a single thing all day.
It is incredibly frustrating for owners.
It is. So today we are doing a deep dive into an incredibly detailed set of canine health and behavioral research. Specifically, we're focusing on beagles today. The source material is a dossier called A Purpose for Every Walk.
Which is a fantastic resource, by the way.
Yeah, it really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly why standard exercise advice completely fails this specific breed.
Right, because the standard advice is usually just to run them more.
Exactly. We want to find out how unlocking their unique minds is the actual secret to a happy, exhausted dog.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because for a lot of well-meaning owners, the baseline assumption is just, more energy equals more running.
It is arguably the most common logical trap that dog owners fall into. You see a restless dog pacing the hallway, and you immediately assume the solution is distance, speed, and physical fatigue.
Which makes sense to us, right? That's how human exercise works.
Exactly. But what's fascinating here is that a tired beagle is absolutely not one that has simply walked a long way.
No.
No, not at all. A truly tired hound is one whose nose, brain, and body have all been genuinely challenged simultaneously. We tend to project human exercise metrics on to dogs, but their biology operates on an entirely different system. Right. And looking at the data we have today, there is this massive fundamental gap between physical exhaustion and mental satisfaction.
A huge gap.
I mean, you can take a hound out and do a military-style march for an hour. Their legs are moving, their cardiovascular system is certainly working, but their brain, that massive scent-driven decision-making engine, is basically turned off.
Yeah, they're just on autopilot.
Exactly.
To understand why that's a problem, you have to look at the evolutionary history of this breed. I mean, for centuries, they were bred and engineered to cover ground while their nose did the heavy lifting.
So they weren't just, like, running for the sake of running.
Right. They weren't bred to sprint in a straight line on an asphalt track. They were built to read incredibly complex scent trails, making these rapid-fire micro-decisions every single second.
Wow, like a constant puzzle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Solving the shifting puzzle of where a rabbit or a fox went next. When you take them on a brisk, steady-paced walk where the only goal is to, keep moving forward to hit a mileage target.
You're completely ignoring what they were built for.
Precisely. You are using their legs, but you are leaving the most highly developed, energy-hungry part of their brain completely unused.
I want to dig into the physics of that for a second, because when you say energy hungry, we aren't just using a metaphor here. We're talking about actual calories and glucose being burned by the brain, right?
Yes, actual physical energy
It
expenditure.
reminds me of how a computer works. If you force a dog on a brisk, no-sniffing walk, it's like leaving the monitor turned on, but leaving the high-powered graphics card sitting completely idle.
That's a great way to put it.
You're draining the battery, sure, but you aren't actually utilizing the machine's primary processor.
That is a highly accurate analogy. The Beagle's olfactory bulb, which is the part of the brain dedicated to processing smell, is massive compared to ours.
Right, it's huge.
So when they are actively dissecting a scent, analyzing the age of the scent, the direction of the wind, the type of animal that left it, their brain is burning through glucose at a staggering rate. Processing those complex scents creates a deep, satisfying neurological fatigue that running in a straight line simply cannot achieve.
But wait, hold on. Anyone who owns one of these dogs knows the frustration of being out in the freezing cold or, when you're late for work, and the dog stops for 2 full minutes at a single random weed growing out of a sidewalk crack.
Oh, I hear this complaint all the time.
I've been there.
Yeah.
It feels like they are just messing with me. Doesn't that start and stop completely ruin the cardiovascular benefit of the exercise?
Well, it only ruins the exercise if your definition of exercise is strictly covering distance without interruption. What you were describing is what veterinary behaviorists call the sniff walk. And letting the dog set the pace and the agenda, even just for a portion of the outing, is transformative for their mental state.
So it's actually good for them to stop at the weed.
Yes, standing in one spot for 2 minutes to process a scent isn't wasted time, and it definitely isn't defiance or stubbornness. That is the beagle actively performing the modern equivalent of what it did for a living for hundreds of years.
So they are literally doing deep work at that weed. They are, like, checking their emails, reading the morning news, and solving a Sudoku puzzle all at the same time.
That is precisely what they are doing. The research actually proves that a shorter 20-minute sniff walk, where the dog is allowed to deeply investigate their environment, will routinely produce a calmer, more settled dog than a much longer, brisk, no-stopping walk.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. Now, the ideal scenario is a combination of both. You want some structured walking to get the heart rate up and maintain muscle tone, alongside dedicated, unapologetic sniff time.
But the sniffing is non-negotiable.
Right. If you want a quiet house, you cannot skip the sniff.
Which is a huge paradigm shift for how we schedule our mornings.
Yeah.
But okay, let's look at the reality of modern life. Let's say it's pouring rain, there's a blizzard outside, or you just have back-to-back Zoom meetings all day, and a long, wandering outdoor sniff walk just isn't in the cards.
It happens to all of us.
How do you trigger that same neurological fatigue? Because we've firmly established that tossing a ball down the hallway to make them run isn't the magic bullet.
Well, you bring the hunt indoors.
Indoors.
Yeah. You don't actually need a forest or an open field to give a hound's nose real taxing work. The most effective environmental enrichment can happen right in your living room or kitchen.
Oh, okay. Like what?
You can scatter their daily kibble or high-value treats in the grass in the backyard and make them search for every single piece. Or inside, you can hide small toys around a room or utilize interactive puzzle feeders.
Right, the ones where they have to work for it.
Exactly. Toys that require them to physically manipulate a mechanism like sliding a panel, flipping a lever to access their food.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the data indicates that just 20 minutes of an indoor scent search game can leave a dog surprisingly exhausted.
It's very effective.
It's tapping into that same dopamine reward loop, right?
Yeah.
They search, they find, they get the dopamine, and it completely satisfies that hunting drive.
Yes, it mimics the entire hunting cycle.
So, if I know I'm leaving for work, and the dog is going to be alone with a massive amount of pent-up curiosity, is an indoor puzzle feeder basically my insurance policy for my couch?
It absolutely is your insurance policy. You are giving their strongest biological instinct a productive, sanctioned outlet.
That makes total sense.
Because if a working dog has no mental outlet, they will inevitably find their own freelance work to do.
Freelance work, I love that.
And a dog's version of freelance entertainment is usually shooing the legs off your dining room chairs, raiding the bathroom trash can, or starting a determined excavation project in the carpet.
Right, which we usually see as them being bad.
But those aren't acts of malice or spite. That is simply an unemployed dog finding a job to do. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it proves that targeted mental stimulation does significantly more to prevent boredom-driven behavioral problems than simply running them around the block until their paws are sore.
So we're essentially fighting biology with biology instead of just getting mad at the dog for acting like a dog.
Exactly.
But speaking of biology, we have to look at how this entire energy system shifts over time. Because solving the how of tiring them out is one thing, but the amount of exercise we apply has to scale drastically depending on the dog's life stage.
Yes, age changes everything.
The physical realities of a puppy are totally different from an adult.
They are, and getting the scaling right is critical for protecting their structural health long term. Let's start with puppies, because this is where owners make the biggest mistakes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The guidelines are very clear. Puppies actually need considerably less structured, forced exercise than most new owners expect.
Wait, I have to stop you there.
Okay.
Anyone who has ever brought a Beagle puppy into their home knows that they're basically tiny, sharp-toothed tornadoes.
They are a handful, for sure.
So telling them to restrict their walking sounds like terrible advice. If I don't walk them to exhaustion, won't they just tear my house apart?
It sounds entirely counterintuitive, I know, but forced exercise is incredibly dangerous for them. The biological mechanism here is their growth plates.
The growth plates?
Yes, specifically the epiphyseal plates at the ends of their bones. In puppies, these plates are made of soft, developing cartilage, not solid bone.
Ooh, wow. I had no idea the bones were literally that soft.
They are. So if you take a puppy on long, repetitive walks, or worse, jog with them on hard pavement, the high-impact pounding can permanently damage those growth plates. It can lead to severe skeletal deformities later in life.
So it's a structural issue, not an energy issue.
Precisely. The general rule of thumb is roughly 5 minutes of structured exercise per month of age, twice a day.
Wait, so a 4-month-old puppy,
Should really only be getting about 20 minutes of structured walking at a time.
that's nothing. How do you burn off that tornado energy then?
They need short, frequent bursts of self-directed play, tumbling around on soft grass, and massive amounts of the indoor scent training we just talked about. Mental fatigue is safe. Physical pounding is not.
So pacing is everything early on. You're protecting the foundation.
Exactly.
But eventually, those growth plates close. What happens when they hit their prime?
Adult beagles, typically from 1 year up to about 7 or 8 years old, are at their absolute physical peak.
The prime years.
Right. The growth plates are solid, and now they generally need roughly an hour or more of daily activity. Because of their historical stamina for covering long distances behind horses and hunters, they often thrive on hiking.
So now we can really push them.
Yes. And this moderate, consistent activity is vital because it builds the core and leg muscle mass needed to stabilize their joints. This breed is predisposed to certain hip and joint issues, and strong muscles act like a natural brace for those joints.
Right, but it's like training for a marathon for us. You don't just jump off the couch after a winter of doing nothing and run a 10-mile hike on the first day of spring.
No, absolutely not. You have to build that tissue resilience gradually.
And then navigating the transition into their senior years, I assume the muscle mass naturally starts to fade. Do they just stop wanting to hunt?
Mentally, not at all. That drive never really fades. But physically, yes, the focus has to shift entirely. For seniors, the goal moves away from stamina and toward maintaining mobility, joint comfort, and slowing down muscle atrophy.
So less hiking, more gentle walks.
Exactly. Shorter, more frequent, low-impact walks are much better than fewer long ones. And this is where those scent games become incredibly crucial again.
Because they still need to use their brain.
Yes, they provide the deep mental stimulation the dog still fiercely craves to stave off cognitive decline, without demanding physical exertion that their aging arthritic joints simply can't handle.
So we've mapped out this energy management system from the sauce bones of puppyhood all the way to the stiff joints of the senior years.
Right.
But age isn't the only variable we have to deal with. The environment triggers that energy instantly. What physically happens when you're out there, you've got your adult dog on a leash, and that ancient hunting instinct overrides all your careful training.
That's the challenge. The first reality of the environment to understand is recall.
Getting your dog to come back when you call their name.
Right. With a scent hound, a powerful, fresh smell will almost always win over a called name.
It's just too tempting.
It's not them ignoring you out of spite. That is a biological override. Because of that, off-leash exercise in unsecured open areas is a massive risk.
So it's the safe option.
A securely fenced yard, an enclosed park, or using a 30-foot-long training lead. Those are really the only safe ways to give them freedom of movement without losing control of the situation.
Okay, let's talk about when they are securely on the leash, because leash pulling is probably the #1 behavioral complaint I hear.
Oh, absolutely.
You're walking, they catch a scent, and suddenly they're choking themselves at the end of the leash trying to get to a bush. So what does this all mean? I've always viewed leash pulling as a behavioral failure on my part, or the dog trying to be the alpha.
It has absolutely nothing to do with dominance.
It doesn't.
No. And it's rarely a failure of your basic training either. It's a sensory overload issue.
Okay, explain that.
When they hit a fresh scent trail, their brain floods with the desire to track it. And physically, when you pull back on a dog's leash, you trigger what's called the opposition reflex.
The opposition reflex.
Yeah. If someone pushes against your chest, your natural instinct is to lean forward into the pressure to keep your balance. Dogs do the exact same thing.
Oh, wow.
The harder you pull back, the harder their nervous system tells them to dig in and pull forward.
That makes total sense. I never considered the physics of the opposition reflex. So if you just try to use leash corrections or yank them backward, you're fighting a losing battle against physics and hundreds of years of genetics.
Exactly. The solutions are practical, environmental management. First, use a well-fitted Y-shaped harness.
To protect their neck.
Right, to take the pressure off their fragile trachea so they don't injure their neck when that reflex kicks in. Second, consistent loose leash training. And crucially, you have to build in that dedicated sniff time.
Right, going back to the sniff walk.
Yes. If the dog learns that they are regularly allowed to stop and investigate the world, they stop operating from a mindset of scarcity.
That's a great point.
They aren't constantly straining against the leash to get to the next smell because they know a sniff break is coming.
It changes the whole dynamic. You manage the instinct, you don't punish it. Now, how does all this movement or lack of movement tie into their weight? Because beagles are notorious for acting like they haven't eaten in weeks, even right after dinner.
This raises an important question because exercise and nutrition are permanently linked. You cannot out-exercise a bad diet.
Right.
And you cannot rely solely on calorie restriction without moderate exercise to maintain that joint stabilizing muscle we talked about earlier. But the real trap owners fall into happens after a dog is spayed or neutered.
Because the surgery changes their hormones, right? Which affects how they burn calories.
Precisely. The removal of those reproductive hormones causes their basal metabolic rate to plummet. Their body simply requires fewer calories to maintain basic functions.
But their massive appetite.
That doesn't decrease at all. So the exact same feeding and exercise routine that kept them lean at 1-year-old will slowly, steadily lead to obesity by age 3.
Oh, man.
And beagles are genetically predisposed to hold on to weight anyway.
So owners can't just follow the serving size on the back of the kibble bag blindly. You have to actively adjust based on the dog in front of you.
Yes. Regular physical body condition checks are vital. You should be able to feel their ribs easily without pressing too hard through a layer of fat.
Okay, so you can feel the ribs.
What else? When you look down at them from above, they should have a clearly visible waist tucked in behind their ribs.
It's a delicate, evolving balance. You have to restrict the puppies to protect the cartilage, exercise the adults to build the muscle to protect those same joints later, and constantly adjust their food intake as their hormones change.
It is a lifelong adjustment.
Before we send everyone out to completely revamp their daily routine, I want to touch on some practical safety guardrails out in the elements and clear away a few final, very persistent myths.
Safety first. And with this breed, heat is your biggest environmental enemy.
Because they have all that fur.
Well, partially, but mostly because dogs don't sweat like humans. They cool themselves primarily by panting, which evaporates moisture from their lungs and tongue.
Right.
But here's the specific danger for a beagle. When their nose is pinned to the ground tracking a rabbit, they are restricting their airway, making panting far less efficient.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Plus, their brain is so hyper-focused on the scent that they will often push right past the early physical warning signs of heat exhaustion.
So they will literally track a scent until they drop.
They will. You have to be the responsible party here. Exercise them only during the cooler early mornings or late evenings in the summer. Keep them hydrated, and always check the temperature of the pavement with your bare hand to protect their paw pads.
And tying back to knowing your dog's limits, you have to know the difference between a dog that is just stopping to sniff and a dog that is genuinely, dangerously fatigued.
Which can look similar if you aren't paying attention.
True fatigue isn't just stopping at a bush. It looks like a real drop in enthusiasm, a heavily lagging pace, and excessive wide-mouth panting that doesn't resolve when they stop moving.
Right. You have to read the dog in front of you, not just the clock on your wrist.
Okay, let's tackle the myths. The biggest one I see everywhere is the fenced garden myth.
Oh, yes.
People think, well, I have a huge half-acre backyard, my dog runs around in it chasing squirrels all day, they don't need a walk. But leaving a dog in the exact same backyard every single day is like handing a human the exact same copy of yesterday's newspaper for an entire year and expecting them to be intellectually stimulated.
That is a perfect functional analogy.
Sure, they can run laps, but there's no new information to process.
Exactly. A yard is a static environment. It is a wonderful supplement for bathroom breaks and quick play, but it is absolutely not a substitute for a walk. It lacks novelty.
They need new smells.
Right. Environmental changes, new terrain, and entirely new scent profiles left by other animals overnight are what actually satisfy their exploratory drive.
And what about the sniffing myth?
You also have the persistent myth that you shouldn't let them stop to sniff, which we've thoroughly debunked today by explaining the glucose burn of the olfactory bulb. Sniffing is the exercise.
And the final myth, that senior dogs naturally lose their curiosity and just want to sleep on the rug all day.
Right. Their bodies slow down, their joints ache, but that incredible nose and the processor attached to it do not turn off.
The brain is still going.
Always. They still need that engagement, even if it's just hiding a few treats in a rolled-up towel on the living room floor.
It really is amazing when you pull all the science and the history together. We've learned that a beagle's body, and especially its brain, were fundamentally engineered for hours of intense, scent-driven problem solving across the rolling fields of medieval England.
It's an incredible piece of biological engineering.
It really is. And today, we might be living in a modern city apartment or a suburban house, but we have to creatively recreate that ancient job. We do it through sniff walks, through scatter feeding, puzzle feeders, and really tailoring their physical care to whatever era of life they're currently in.
Protecting the growth plates early and stimulating the mind later.
Exactly. The landscape around them has completely changed, but the nose, well, the nose hasn't changed a bit.
It hasn't. So the next time you take your dog out, just try an experiment. Let them set the agenda for the first 10 minutes.
I love that.
Stop looking at your watch. Stop worrying about your step count. Give them the chance to actually read the complex, invisible landscape of scents that they are walking through.
I absolutely love that approach. And I want to leave you with one final broader thing to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. If centuries of selective breeding hardwired a beagle's brain to require complex environmental problem-solving disguised as sniffing, just to feel calm and settled at the end of the day, how much of our own human restlessness, our own modern anxiety, is simply a biological mismatch?
Oh, that's a profound thought.
Think about it. We humans have this deep evolutionary hardwiring to solve tangible physical problems in the natural world,
Right.
to navigate, to build, to hunt. And yet we live in these highly structured, predictable, sanitized modern environments where everything is just delivered to us. Are we, too, just pacing the living room, chewing the metaphorical furniture of our lives, simply because we are lacking a good sniff walk?
It's definitely something to consider.
Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and keep exploring the incredible world of canine and human minds.